Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? Are we recording?
Yeah.
All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Today is May 8th, 2025. This is the Rules Committee. We're on the calendar from 1 to 3. It's 1:01 p.m. today. We'll start with introductions. Mr. Martinez?
George Martinez.
Daniel Vold.
Yara Silvers.
Scott Myers.
Keith McCormick.
Aaron Baldwin Day.
Zach Johnson.
Christopher Constant?
Anna Brawley.
Felix Rivera.
Jared Gerker.
Cameron Perez Verdia.
All right, that's all of us. Plus we have, I know the room is completely full. All members are here, and I don't remember the last time we bled onto all three wings of the table. So we have a robust agenda before us. Do we have the awards? Okay, so why don't we go ahead and start there so we can get right into the business? Thank you. So we will start right now with a recognition of someone who doesn't.
All right. You can start with this one.
I'll start with this one, just take care of the business. We can't celebrate her because she's not here, but today we're recognizing Mandy Honest for 10 years of service to the municipality. So with a fancy pin with two blue stones for 5 years each. And Mandy, thank you for keeping us in line on licensing. So, and employee of the quarter this quarter. I don't have the statement. Maybe I do. No, I don't. Usually I have kind of the nomination form to read, and I don't have it. So I will just say that our legislative services team is working really hard all the time. New members who came on after we created the legislative services team felt a lot of relief when you started to see support that you didn't otherwise kind of have before that. And the newer members won't ever know that environment, hopefully. But having Jennifer Venniclausen to help with our research and our ability to get legislation drafted got her recognized this quarter as the Assembly Branch Employee of the Quarter. Welcome, Jennifer. And as is the standard, I always say this, our staff have to build their own trophies because we are a do-it-yourself branch of government.
Congratulations, Jennifer. On this
Trophy. Yes, Daryl has one in it. Some in the ombudsman's office. I've seen one. I don't know that Daryl has one. I think I've seen it over there. Somebody. No, I'm getting askance glances over there. I have seen one. And in fact, I was at Ocean View Elementary School with the mayor recently doing a presentation to the scouts. And they have an entire closet full of large format, made your own trophies for their various in-school programs. So we aren't the original, but we're in good company. Okay, so reports from the chair and the mayor. The mayor isn't here today. Mr. President had asked, and I had already been kind of working in this theme that we come up with an opportunity. It won't be every meeting, but it might be twice a year, maybe just once a year, where we sit in this committee forum and talk with the mayor and have an alignment conversation about our branch priorities, their branch priorities. And the next opportunity for that is probably coming up before the budget process begins in earnest. And so I have pitched it, but I haven't heard a final answer back from the administration. But we're thinking to take this line and make it just a little bit more once or twice a year on our kind of relationship with the administration. So I don't have a substantive report today. We have plenty of business to get to. So I'll just pivot and offer the microphone to the clerk. Nothing to report. Also, Legislative Council. Or Assembly Council, yeah.
Oh, well, if me to
recent habit this year of reporting sort of our production numbers, if you wanted to hear those. Well, we have it updated from this morning, actually. For our main meeting, we published from this office 1 ordinance and 2 resolutions in the main meeting, but year to date, 23 ordinances, 7 resolutions, 2025 so far. And for floor amendments, we did 4 for May and 65 year to date for floor amendments. Right on the table items, new ones, 0 for May. And I think that's fantastic, actually. And then supplemental items, we had 1, 17 year to date, 10 new laid on the table items to date. And then I'm pleased to mention that this morning we completed a Board of Adjustment appeal decision in the Mills subdivision case. And so that concludes our Board of Adjustment work that's pending this year. So just, I guess, standing by until we have another appeal. And I would like to really appreciate that. We have a full Board of Adjustment of 5 members that make decisions by 3-member panels. But if 1 or 2 is conflicted out and we have a vacancy, it's really difficult. So having the complete board is important. We had that most recent member, Janet Mueller, appointed, I think, a month and a half ago. That enabled us to make the decision this morning. So.
Anything to add, Mr. Hurd? No, okay. Next, we'll have a report from Legislative Services.
All right, like all of the staff in the branch, we had a very busy March and April getting the new members, all of their hopes and dreams, well, old members, outgoing members, all their hopes and dreams fulfilled before they left office, and then onboarding all of the new members. But that process is mostly complete. New members, just keep us posted if you need anything. I was really proud of a lot of the communications that Allie did on the transition. Some of the emails introducing the new members were really neat and solid, so that was a good process. We, of course, continue to work on communications, presentations, project management for a number of projects that you all are working on. Jennifer continues to track bills in the state legislature and work with our federal lobbyists to keep you up to date on that. We just mentioned in the legislative meeting that one of the bills we're tracking for Chugach State Park access has passed both houses and is now waiting governor's signature, so that's good news. And we are working on what we're calling the Summer of Hope. We have a number of initiatives to civic education, get people involved in the community, educate people on municipal issues such as the Munification celebration of 50 years of the municipality this September, and a civic education program that I am working on that I will be talking about at next week's Nerd Night, if you can make it to hear about that. And then finally, we are wrapping up our Hive implementation for our new project management software and kind of going in just steady with that. So hopefully you all got emails from Brandy showing you your dashboard with your current projects. If you haven't done an orientation with me, let me know. I can do about a 20-minute orientation on how to use that if you'd like to use it. And the rest of staff, that's how we are now managing all the work that we do for the body. And we share that, and it's very helpful to keep us in coordination. That's what we have this month.
All right. Then I would ask to hear from the Ombudsman's office. I know Mr. Hess is conducting interviews right now for the ERC director position. So is any report from the Office of the Ombudsman? Well, they were here, but it appears they've taken off. So, but we do now have the mayor who's joined us. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for your hard work in getting us through a nice meeting on Tuesday. Really appreciate all the back end behind the scenes work that it takes, especially by you, Chris. And I am looking forward to working with all of you. I appreciate this opportunity to keep it casual. I know rules committees are still first name basis. Is that right? Hasn't changed since
I
the
have
last
bad
time?
habits. I always go with the last name, but yes, first names are totally legit.
All right.
Suzanne.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Also, just wanted to extend an invitation to members. Some of us have already met for those quarterly district meetings. I think we have most of them on the calendar, and just really appreciate you all making time for that kind of conversation and check-in. And then if anyone wants to set up regular meetings, like, one-on-one together monthly too. I'm always open to, whatever can help us work together. And of course, please let us know what we can do to help and what you all need. I know that this week there's been a lot of focus on public safety issues, and hopefully you all have received the document around turning the tide on homelessness that we sent out. That's gone to the Anchorage delegation and the congressional delegation as well. I know you all received questions, and we received those too, and just ask that you continue to help push out information. I know you all attend like 8, 9, 10 community council meetings a month. And as you collect questions, if you want to send those to us, we're putting together a fact document with a lot of those questions that come up over and over. We've had questions, for example, around abatement and the different options. What does it mean, a 24-hour versus 72-hour versus 10-day abatement, and why do we pick one or the other? So we're putting together some more information to better address what we're hearing from the community. And so if you can help us with that by sharing your questions too, we can get those in one place. And I just did want to acknowledge, some of the times we find ourselves in a more strategic posture around communications when we're talking about homelessness, when we're talking about litigation risks. And as always, if anyone has questions, I think you all know to contact the municipal attorney's office directly too for any support in that area. And just to reiterate again, as we've said before, that the $5.5 million in housing assistance should be going out from the health department next week. And then I've heard some of you mention you expect to be at the fire department's town hall on the 19th. And I think that will be a really good event. And I know I've been recommending that folks attend that as well when I speak to groups. I'll be doing a tour of JBER on Monday, and have had a series of good conversations with folks there and ways that we can coordinate. And especially the municipal manager's office has been in touch on areas where we can clearly work together. And we have some shared opportunities and concerns. I think none of you will be surprised to know that beyond readiness, as the commander shared with me, they also have a big focus on housing and childcare. And again, probably not a surprise that they have those same issues that we're all so keenly focused on. And then, of course, the bike rodeo this weekend. I hope you're all ready to saddle up, or what. I don't really know what goes on at a bike rodeo, but it sounds fun. I think, Daniel, you probably know. But not to single you out, but wasn't there somebody here who was, I don't know, maybe I'm sorry, I might be out of turn. But again, rules is casual and informal. But anyway, thank you all so much. Please let us know how we can help and support you in your roles. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you. And thanks, Chris.
Point of information, Chair, just to make it sound formal. The bike rodeo will be at the Chanchenoo Muldoon Park
Oh,
to make sure we have a location for that. So folks are more than welcome to come to the east side and
Can you-
yeehaw
What
is
time?
how it goes at the
What
rodeo.
time?
10 a.m.
So.
thank
and
you, Member
Saturday.
Martinez.
Saturday
Okay, so 10
This
a.m.
Saturday.
Saturday at Chanchenoo Muldoon
at
Park.
Chanchenoo Muldoon
bike
Park, 10 to
rodeo.
1.
So we should probably put it on the calendar since it was invited and folks may show up.
Right on.
Is it a competition? I'm out of, no, or is it just a bike rodeo? Has anyone been to it before? Or-
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's all of the above. Lots of fun, lots of competition. Most importantly, safety for young people as we give out free helmets and make the community aware of bicycle safety. So,
Okay.
yeah. And they're going to give away free bicycles as well. I think there's a raffle going to happen.
Oh, that sounds, Okay, no, that sounds really great. I mean, just along those lines, I wanted to share, I recently learned that bike yoga does not involve using your bike. Those of you who may have done baby yoga, right? You lift the baby. This does not involve
yoga.
lifting the bike.
Goats
It's
or
to
puppies.
strengthen the bike muscle. Bike,
All right.
yeah. Just wanted to.
So you weren't here before, and Cameron had sent out an email between us discussing the possibility of maybe setting up a semi-regular opportunity here to discuss alignment between the branches. And I offered back that, yeah, we could talk about that. No, probably more than twice a year, but the first opportunity might be, and get Ona in the room and to talk before the budget process takes full swing, where we can, instead of, or in partnership with the resolution that the assembly has often passed in July, it could be an opportunity to just talk about our shared priorities. And so doing, I think it deepens this process that we began by hosting you here. So I'll just add that, and sure.
I'll be very brief. And I think the suggestion came because so many of our meetings on projects are between two of us as members, or maybe you go and have a one-on-one with the mayor. And I think through that process, often we as a body don't often hear about, we as a body hear about what projects we're doing, but we as a body don't often hear about the projects the mayor's working on while we're all together. And so there's a thought about, you know, as if the mayor like us was talking about projects that she's focusing on, or the priorities, or when they're happening as a body, then it could be an opportunity to find some immediate alignment, like, hey, that sounds awesome. I'd like to work with you on that. Or that sounds just like a project I'm working on. Can we touch base on that? So just a touch points, maybe whatever period of time throughout the year, to think about alignment in terms of the work we're doing. And because we make decisions as a body, not as individuals, and the only time we come together really as a body is the meetings and then this meeting. And so it felt like that this may be an opportunity to be able to tap into that. So that's the intent. How it works out, the frequency, all of that, I think it's still to be determined.
So just, that's an offer. You know.
Yeah, one other quick thought on that. So we had our legislative committee right before this, and that committee traditionally has been where all the discussions happen about legislative program. So coming up in the fall, I think that's another place where it might be helpful to have the mayor participate. Obviously, we have our legislative program. I would guess we're not just going to throw what we have out the window and change it completely, but I think that's a kind of another place where it'd be helpful to have a conversation with the body, or we have a work session, something like that. And that wouldn't be until later fall, but just kind of thinking about, again, how we all give input on that process. So whether it's through the committee or here or a work session, just wanted to flag that.
Yeah, and there are probably a ton of places where that would make sense. And the mayor has offered individual and kind of district meetings, and this is another opportunity. And so thank you for that. And I will, anyone else? No, I have one last note. I did get to participate in a very spicy community council last night on the theme of homelessness. And it was so helpful to have that tool. So I just want to say thank you to your team and to you for getting us that. I may have some suggested edits to send back to your way just for delivery, make it easier. Just word choices and whatnot, but none of it affects the policy. The policy is really good, and it helped diffuse a lot of feelings last night. So thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to the next part of the agenda. The next up on the agenda is a review of draft ordinance regarding motion to postpone indefinitely when it closes a public hearing or preempts. Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Let me give it just a little bit of background before I get into these two ordinances, versions, I should say, of the ordinance. This actually came out of, I believe it was the jaywalking ordinance that the mayor put forward. The intent going into that meeting was to have a motion before the public hearing to postpone indefinitely and not get into the merits or the debate, but we did get into the merits and the debate on that for like 10 or 15 minutes. And I will tell you that for me, that didn't sit right, that we did spend so much time getting into the debate and the merits of that particular ordinance before the public hearing. So while we were doing that, I was looking out in the audience and people were sitting there wanting to talk, but they were looking at us talking before they had the chance to talk. So if you think about work sessions, it's pretty common for the chair to say, we're not going to get into the debate at work sessions. Well, why does the chair say that? The chair says that because debate happens at a time and at a place. And that time and place is at a regular or a special assembly meeting, and after the public hearing is closed is when debate happens. So given that, I asked for this ordinance to be drafted, and I asked for two different versions. One of these versions is what I would call sort of living in the gray, and the other one is black and white. So what do I mean by that? Let's go ahead and, yeah, these aren't marked version A, version, oh, there they are. Okay, so let's look at draft A. So really the main difference in the two is gonna be on page 3 of 3. So draft A, the highlighted section there. So this one is the black and white version. So it basically says, when a motion to postpone indefinitely is made before the public hearing happens, then that motion is not debatable. We just do the move and the second, and then we vote, and that's it. Version B, draft B, is the gray version, and it's basically same page, same section. It talks about motion to postpone indefinitely is debatable, but it cannot reach the merits of the underlying item. Through discussions with Matthew, who helped me work on this, I do think for the benefit of the chair and for the body, I do think that probably draft version A is the easier version to manage and gives clearer guidance to us. But I put both versions forward for discussion today, and that's it.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Great. Thank you for bringing this forward. Can you hear me? I think this one's not very loud. Oh, there we go. So I guess I have two questions. One is, so this just applies before the closure of the public hearing. So let's say the public hearing was closed. Maybe there's like a spicy ordinance, and some members feel like they don't want to debate it publicly. They could still move to postpone indefinitely before another main motion, so long as the public hearing has been closed.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, if the public hearing has been closed, yes, you could make a motion to postpone indefinitely, and then someone
And then you
else,
could
if they
say
wanted
why.
to, could.
It's debatable.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it is
okay.
debatable, and if you didn't want to debate it, then you would have to make the motion to,
Call the question.
thank you,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Right, and
So
so
that's still-
this is the only for when
Got
a
it.
motion to postpone indefinitely is used as a main motion,
Can I
meaning,
still have the floor?
yeah,
I think I got it from Felix. And then my other question is work sessions versus committee meetings, because I've heard how you characterized a work session, which I think is true. We typically don't debate items. We just get information in the work session. But committee meetings, sometimes those are used as a vehicle for crafting legislation collectively as a committee. And I think there might be, that might be a venue to get into a little bit of discussing merits of that legislation.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that it's similar to what we're doing now, right? We're debating the merits of this legislation that hasn't been introduced yet. But I would say once something does get introduced, then I think it is fairly common practice for this body that the actual debate of it, I don't like it because of X, happens at the assembly meeting. We could do like at a committee, I have concerns about this and maybe this amendment should happen, and that would allay my concerns. I don't think that necessarily gets into debate depending on how you phrase it and everything. Yeah.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
yeah, I'm just gonna jump on there and say that this doesn't, how does this affect committees?
It does not, because
Right.
committees don't
That's
make
my read.
this
So
motion.
this shouldn't have any effect on the procedures of a committee, and the committee has broad leeway. They can make recommendations, they can make proposals for amendments, they can, they can do any number of things at a committee. And so, no, that's right. And so nothing that the committee makes as any action would affect this question. It's just a slightly
But committees
different.
can take a vote. You can do like can't you vote in committees on
The
something?
committee can take up a motion to say we approve, or we recommend approval, can say we recommend postponing. They can do whatever they want, really. And that recommendation is the voice of that committee and the members therein. And so it's a little grayer when it's a committee of the whole and there are like 8 members present, but it's not outside of the rules. So this won't have any impact on what happens. And so yes, to the main theme of your question, the difference between a work session and a committee is that the committee can be more substantive in its discussions about any given item. And the work session is really informational, gathering questions.
And I think just to put a finer point on it, I think the key attachment here is motion to postpone indefinitely public hearing. Public hearings only happen at assembly meetings. They don't happen in committee meetings, work sessions, etc.
Although they probably could, but that's a different question. Anna and then Cameron.
Yeah, I appreciate these two options being laid out, and I hear the argument that version A is cleaner. The rule is the rule. Of course, if we suspend the rules, that's the whole thing. But I guess the only heartburn I have with the idea of it just not being debatable, because I also get the argument for why this would be the case in this situation, is even if it's not a spicy hearing, I'm imagining either we open the public hearing and there were 3 people there to speak and they care about it a lot, or whatever. If someone moves, I guess the benefit of having a debatable motion is you get to hear the intent of the person, right? And so I could imagine situations where even if it's not a particularly controversial item, the public may be confused or just other members are confused, and they may be more likely to vote, no, I'm not going to postpone this indefinitely because they haven't heard why, like what the case is. And so even though it's more complex, I guess I'm leaning to, in terms of the practicality of the way we work, I kind of like version B better, but I also, again, recognize that does create, it is more gray and it puts gray in the code. So that's where I'm at right now.
I think you haven't spoken to this. We'll let you go first and then Cameron.
Just a clarifying question. So in draft B, may be debated, but the scope of the debate may not reach the merits of the underlying item. Would it be up to the chair to determine whether the scope of the debate that followed made its way into the merits? Would that be a chair decision?
Yeah, so that's the normal procedure, subject to the ruling of the body though, right? So everything ultimately is a decision of 7 members of the body. So the chair would make a ruling, and then if there are people who are like, oh no, we disagree, then that's the procedure. Yeah. First Cameron and then Anna.
Just 2 items. One, just going back to the committee conversation. I think it's important that again, the committee cannot act on behalf of the body, and that therefore the only action the committee can actually take related to the body is a recommendation. So a vote only lands as a recommendation. And so it just I think that's why we very rarely have motions and votes in committee, because all they would do is just be a recommendation. But and then the second is I would also agree with Anna that I would prefer the version that it's a little more gray. I think there's some opportunity for the chair to allow substantive, or helpful debate, not debate, helpful conversation that relates to it. Because I think if you cut it off and don't give any option for that, I think you're really limiting your ability to sort of really have a good process. So that's all I have to add.
Scott.
I'm wondering if it's even necessary to do this at all, version A or B, or just leave it alone.
I didn't catch that last statement.
A or B, I'm thinking we just leave it alone and don't do anything. What's the benefit of,
Yeah, certainly. I think that's an opinion some members may have. The whole reason that I brought this forward was that one example that I mentioned of the jaywalking ordinance. And, I will say we have had up until that ordinance a fairly good practice of if we want to postpone something before the public hearing, then we make the motion, second it, and then we might have like a explanation of why we're making the motion, and then that's it. Then we vote and nothing else happens. So it was when that jaywalking ordinance came that I felt like we went beyond what we should have. And I think it's unfair to the public, frankly, which is why I put these forward.
I guess my question to that would be, we've been operating as a body for how many years, and do we need to change that now?
Well, and I would offer that this motion in this way is only about 3 years old, or maybe 4 years old. And so it is a fairly new procedural maneuver, because we came to the realization that you wouldn't want to have a public hearing on an item that was gonna take hours when everybody knew it was already dead, right? And there was no method to do that. So what we did was essentially transformed the motion to postpone indefinitely, which under Robert's rules is a subsidiary motion, and made it into a main motion, which is an unusual beast, creature of our code. And so these questions are valid in the sense that they're not even 5 years old. So we're innovating,
Okay.
and that doesn't get to the merits of the question, but Dean and then Zach. Oh,
I just wanted to add to that, Mr. Chair. Historically, before this rule was in place, we also saw at the close of public hearing, the chair asked what's the will of the body, and sometimes the first motion was motion to postpone indefinitely, which isn't technically a main motion in the Roberts rules. That's why we did that change, to make it an incidental main motion, so you could do that when, the members, basically, there's a sense that there was an interest in moving forward. So the main motion is supposed to be motion to approve the ordinance, and then a motion to postpone indefinitely. But, like I said, in practice, often the first motion, not often, but sometimes with legislation that appeared to be going nowhere, it was just postpone indefinitely first. And then we have this practice to put in place to save time in the public hearing.
and we might send something off to the Roberts people about how we do this, because there might be something instructive for them as well. Zach? Yeah, there's a group.
To Robert.
Yeah.
So with this, if there is a motion to postpone indefinitely prior to the public hearing and that motion fails, then we do open the public hearing, and then another main motion would be made at the close of the public hearing. Am I following that right? Yeah. Okay. And then I debated, but I will say, just looking at draft B, and I think this idea that we debate but not reach the merits of the underlying item, I'm having a hard time thinking about how we would do that. I feel like to argue for the indefinite postponement without touching on the merits of the item. I mean, I feel like there's a very narrow lane perhaps where somebody might be able to do it, but it just feels like that would be borderline unenforceable in my mind. So I'm just thinking through that piece of it as well.
Anna?
Yeah, thanks. I think that is a good point. And I mean, again, it speaks to the gray, but two things to offer. Well, I guess second one went out of my head. Back to kind of Aaron's question. I think that the question about kind of how you manage, whether something's in or out of bounds, I think that ultimately it is a ruling of the chair, but I think it's something that I've noticed, our body to date is reluctant to do, which is call points of order on other members, which is because I think there is, not that it doesn't happen, but I think that's the way. So if we feel like we're straying into debate or we're straying off of the topic or whatever it is, I think it is incumbent on all of us, if we feel that, to, and it is balancing, like, do you want to, is it a relationship thing? Is it a whatever it is? But I think that's the other way to manage it. And then that's available to us no matter what the topic is. So it isn't just the chair makes the decision, but it's ultimately the members that make that call.
And if I could add to that, you raised a very important point, that the chair isn't going to see all of the potential ways people are stepping over the line. And that is, the first step is often the membership, a member saying, hey, I think we're over the line here. And so the chair depends actually on the membership holding the lines that need to be there by speaking up when things appear to be stepping across the boundaries of what's acceptable within the practices. And so, yeah, beyond the chair making the ruling, a point of order is always in order until it's ruled in order or not. Aaron?
So with draft A and the very black and white, the piece that feels really important, really salient to me is just that there be an opportunity for the person who is making the motion to say why they're making that motion. Does that constitute debate or not?
So I have that same exact note on my paper. And so do you want to speak to that, Felix?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about some other motions that we make, like the call to question, which is a non-debatable motion. I'm fairly certain that when you make that motion, call to question, that the person making the motion doesn't have the opportunity to explain why they're making it. So I imagine it would be in the same frame. That said, I'm gonna look to the attorneys. I don't see why we couldn't change it so that at least the mover could speak to the why within bounds, and then that's it. Just so that's on the record. Is that something we could do?
Through the chair, I don't see any legal objection to making the language more detailed. I would say that I don't think requesting the movement to state their basis necessarily has to reach the merits of the underlying question. If the goal of the movement is to kill the item, then they can just say, I want to kill the item. They don't have to say why they don't like the item. Like, the intent here is to kill this legislation and save us all some time. The more traditional times the movement has expressed why they wish to postpone indefinitely, it's because, you know, we're on S3 and we have a completely new AO that we're going to introduce next month. And so we want to just get rid of this one and start fresh in a month. Again, it's not debating the underlying merits, it's just stating why they're moving. So I think as written, it's fair for the chair to interpret it that the movement's motives can be announced without getting into the merits. But yeah, we can definitely craft language to be more explicit.
So
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think that's the point that feels most salient to me. Like I am all in favor of a black and white, this is not debatable, as long as there's an opportunity for the person who makes the motion to at minimum state why they're making the motion. As a member, it feels really helpful for me to understand that rather than sort of like walking in blind.
So I had myself in the queue and I literally had the same note written on my page that was along those lines of the mover should have a right to provide sufficient detail in the motion. And so I don't know how we would frame that language, but that would solve, then that if we did that to the version that is not debatable, right? Except the mover may provide sufficient detail or something along those lines as to why, that would solve the problem for me. So, Daniel.
Thank you. I think I have a different take. I think that gives one member the opportunity, especially if they're not the sponsor, to kill somebody else's legislation and nobody to respond to support it. And that to me feels very unfair. We have had examples where a sponsor brings a piece of legislation forward and they may, during committee reports or something, have a moment of personal privilege and they can say their intent is not to move, or their intent is to continue the public hearing to a later time. And so I think giving a sponsor of legislation latitude to be able to indicate their will or their timing, I think is a really positive thing. But I think if someone's motive is for whatever reason to kill someone else's legislation, allowing them to speak to that and not allowing the sponsors to respond or defend, it just, to me, just, I don't know, it doesn't sit right. And so I think the more that we're talking about this, I'm leaning, if a version of this were to move forward, I'd be leaning more toward the black and white version.
Okay, Scott.
I completely agree with Daniel. I think that we go into this knowing, and if the sponsor wants to kill something, that's one thing. But if there's somebody waiting to jump on and be the first to motion to postpone indefinitely, a quick second, we all know where we're going to vote. I mean, the majority of the time, I think it's pretty black and white when we're going into things. So I completely agree with what Daniel just said, and I think I'd be leaning toward the A version if this is going to be amended at all.
The A version, I think, is the one that may be debated, but
May not
no,
be.
it may not. Okay,
It's not
okay, got it. So, go ahead, George.
Yeah, I might as well just articulate, I don't see why we even are touching this. We should just leave it alone. And fundamentally, I will just preface it by saying, every member has a right to bring whatever piece of legislation forward, even if it's obvious that it's going to potentially fail. Right? And so that is the today currently what our opportunity is that people bring. We know what's going to happen generally, and the item that was referenced as the starting point is a subjective feeling that somebody had about a moment in time that I don't feel the same way about, right? And that's the beauty of the subjective nature of individual sovereignty. And so fundamentally, we've taken time here, and we do this often, and we'll do this on the body as well if we bring any of these forward, I'm sure. So I just think keep it simple, unless there's something drastically wrong with how our process is rolling, which I don't see at this time. I'm not inclined to move any of this. Thank you.
I think I'll just say it that I do see some merit for this question coming before the body, and we can debate it when it's before us if it comes. And
you could count on it.
Yep. And
Should we take a vote of the committee?
no, so again,
I move to postpone indefinitely.
committees of the whole are kind of risky in the question of taking votes, but before the main motion is before us. But and I'll talk with you about this, and there may be an item or two other that gets wrapped into this title if it comes forward that is related, but not ready for prime time briefing. So, but Felix, I would join as a sponsor. Okay, next up, the fun part, a liaison organization presentations. George, we have you on the agenda.
Yeah, I saw that, Chair. That's an interesting addition to the agenda, considering you didn't ask me why to put me on the agenda. So what do you have me on the agenda for?
That's funny because when it showed up on the agenda, I said the same thing to the clerk, and she said, no, he said he wanted this. And so I just said, okay.
I will take, well, I will take credit then.
That's what happened.
No, yeah, it is what happened, because I will take credit then. I recommended to the chair and having a conversation about what the heck is the liaison for? That rather than have new members picking organizations that they may not know anything about, we turn it into an opportunity to have a little introduction from the organizations, to give members the opportunity to hear what they do, and then potentially pick strategically what organization folks want to liaison with. I thought that was a better way to approach this, and the chair was like, yeah, let's do that. And he did the work to extend the invitation out with the clerk's office to all of the community stakeholders that are here today. And I see many of them in the audience. So that's the setup. The hope is that folks have the opportunity to hear from the organizations, think strategically how you may want to serve as a liaison or not. And it just give us a better opportunity. Because what we found is that a lot of folks don't know anything about these groups, and then they go in and it may not be necessarily what folks were looking for.
Yeah,
So thank you, Chair.
perfect. You're welcome, and thank you for the suggestion. And then we don't have them all here. I think we have 3, 4. Oh, no, there we go. We got 5. Okay, great. And so,
Can I ask a question?
Cameron,
Yeah, I don't mean to throw a loop. I don't know what I'm don't mean to confuse anybody, but I do. One of the things that when I thought about this last year when we did this is that how did this come to be? Like, how did this come to be that these specific organizations we're liaisoning with, and why aren't we liaisoning with other organizations? And why are these on our list? And there's a whole bunch of other organizations. I'm like, it seems like those should be on our list too. And I just don't understand the relationship necessarily. And we don't have to have a conversation right now, but it's something I'd like to understand is there are a lot of organizations that are directly related to this city and how the city is run and receive funding from us and have a relationship with us that are not on here. And these are. And so I wonder just how much of this is just how it's always been, and whether there's been a conversation about what are the organizations that we need to be, sitting on their board, whether we need to be in connection with them, that sort of thing. So just want to throw that out there I've never asked that question before, but I've always wondered where this list came from. So thanks.
Yeah, and I can offer that it is just momentum and inertia, and other organizations have asked for and have participated in the role and left and are no longer here. There are others that could be, absolutely. And in fact, there are others that some members are on the board by virtue of their position on the assembly. It comes to mind is the Chamber of Commerce in Girdwood, or not Girdwood, Eagle River, Chugiak. They always take on, and so there are others, and that is a conversation. But that is not a conversation for today. Today's conversation, I kind of laughingly call it speed dating for the liaison organization. So we asked them to come up with a no more than 5-minute presentation. We have 5, which is 25 minutes. And then afterwards, we have a discussion about committees, and liaisons may be part of that discussion. And so rather than having everybody just kind of think, oh, that sounds interesting, we thought, let's allow them to tell us why. What's the why here? And so I don't know who we want to go first. I think since you start with A, we'll start with AEDC. I don't know. Yeah, so ACDA, I'm sorry. ACDA. AE. But it does, even if it's just in the code, we are the stewards of the code, and so they could be encoded if we wanted to change or add or remove. Yeah. Their ACDA is a creature of the municipality. And so this is AEDC in some ways, but a less direct connection. So you have a presentation. Why don't we let you dive in? And I am gonna start a timer because it'll be easy to get really deep into hearing from one organization, and then we wouldn't get a chance to hear from everyone else. So go ahead, Mike.
I promise to be quick, especially since this is an informal meeting, but I do want to start with the commercial. We're going to leave some flyers on the table. AC just completed a survey. It's called the Anchorage Downtown Survey. We surveyed 770 Anchorage adults about downtown usage. We're doing a lunch and learn next Friday. You're all invited if you would like to come. We'll leave the flyers on the table. So ACDA is one of those organizations that actually the liaison positions are codified. So in code, it requires that that there'd be 2 assembly members that sit on our board as a liaison. Next slide. Am I clicking this or? Oh, there we go. And I think the most important is you get to join this fantastic team when you liaise for us. This is our Christmas party this year. Next slide. This is our code for those of you, especially for the new members. Thank you very much, by the way, for letting us come today, Chair, and everybody else. It's to engage in community economic development. I won't read the whole thing, but basically, we're here to help the municipality further its goals and objectives through development, through community projects. And so we're a little bit different than some of the organizations. We do utilize our board. As a board liaison, you'd be called upon to help us make decisions and give us advice and participate in our process. Next slide. Community Development Authority, just really quick. One of the questions I had when I got appointed to this position 5 years ago was, what is a Community Development Authority? So I thought I would include that. We're an organization that can provide support to address the economic and social issues facing Anchorage. Basically, that means we're a tool for you to use however you need us. We can be pointed and shot in many directions. We can focus on housing one day, the next day we can focus on collecting coats for kids. I mean, it is whatever the issue of the day is that the municipality needs, we have the ability to focus on that. Next slide. Municipal corporation, again, organized by code, self-supporting. We have 2 departments, a development department and a parking services department. I did bring along with me, my Vanna here is Chad Stovall. He's our new development director, just to introduce him to all of you. We're managed by a mayor-appointed board of directors, assembly oversight through the liaisons, and we pay MISA tax on all of our properties. Next slide. Anchorage Community Development Authority is very enthusiastic about the opportunities for helping to grow the economy, helping to create jobs, and helping to make Anchorage a better place to live, and contributing to a more vibrant, equitable, and resilient city. So with that, Chris, did I make my 5 minutes?
Yep, you're halfway through. And
I'm halfway through. Well, I was hoping that I could answer questions. Are there any questions from any of the members that might want to ask us questions? I mean,
anyone? Anyone? Go ahead. First Daniel, then Scott.
So I'm currently one of the ex officio, I guess the only ex officio.
You're the only one. We've been short for a while now.
Maybe you could just mention, because you guys are working on a couple exciting projects,
We
just
are.
like the highlights.
Sure. We are currently working on an RV resort at the corner of Third and Ingra. We're hoping to get that in front of you guys next month after the HLBAC approves that. We're working on the purchase of the J.C. Penney's garage and the redevelopment of the D Street area. We're also working on a housing project on Fireweed, where we acquired 2 pieces of land from the assembly that we'll be building 34 units of apartments on. We are also working on, what am I forgetting here?
Housing efforts, general community economic development.
Yeah, we those are 3 of the big ones. Are the J.C. Penney garage, the development on Fireweed, and then we have other programs that we're working on. We have the Housing Accelerator program that we're working on to help bridge the gap in financing housing. And then we were instrumental in helping to get the state law changed so that we could offer the 100% tax abatement last year. We advocated for that on behalf of the city. So,
Scott.
I was just wondering if maybe you can give an indication of how much time it takes for the new members, because typically you come and present at CDEC, so it's a good information. I mean, a lot of us are at that meeting, but if you've only got one ex officio member, give us why.
We only have one ex officio member because I think the administration changed and we just haven't got that second person appointed by this body. I think you're waiting for this meeting or for this period today. The amount of time it takes, we have 2 meetings a month that we would like to have our ex officio members at. We have a board meeting that's once a month. We are pretty tight with our time and we keep it to an hour and a half. And that usually happens starting at 3. So it's 3 to 4:30 on a Wednesday. Then we have a development committee meeting where we talk about the development projects that we're doing, and that's tight to an hour, 60 minutes. And that usually is on a Thursday at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. And then we also have a operations and finance meeting, which happens on the same on a Thursday, usually at 2 or 3 o'clock. So it takes a 2 to 3 hour commitment.
There we go. That's 5 minutes. So thank you guys. And we will next, sorry, Jenna, we're going to hear from, because it's going in Alpha, the Anchorage Chamber. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I know. Oh, wait, I did that wrong, didn't I? No, wait, C. C is before E. You're right. Go ahead. I can do this. Welcome.
Hi.
I'm going to give you 5 minutes to introduce
you.
yourself.
I'm Kathleen McCardle. I'm the president and CEO of the Anchorage Chamber of Commerce. Hello to all of you. Thank you so much for those who were able to be at our Make It Monday 2 weeks ago and present to answer some questions and do some quick fire discussion and introduction to some of our members who attended that. But anyway, the Anchorage Chamber is a business membership association. So we do not have a position for our ex officio assembly liaison required in our bylaws. However, it is very nice to have. We really appreciate the open door it's created into having conversations ongoing that the board who represents our business members is able to hear directly from the assembly, and the assembly hear directly from them as far as what's top of mind and the action that the Anchorage Chamber is undertaking month to month. Our mission is to advance a successful business climate by attending to the civic, economic, and cultural betterment of our community through advocacy, connectivity, and education. It was founded in 1915 as some of the original tent city founders of Anchorage. That was one of the very first organizations that was stood up to help the developing city. We are a not-for-profit 501c6, and again, that's a business membership association. So much of our revenue, about half of it actually comes directly from membership dues. The municipality actually does participate in our due structure as a member. So that means all of you and your staff and everyone who is employed at the municipality represents membership. So they're all welcome to engage in all of our programs that are open to members. We have a couple of benefits that are still actually unused. We were looking at this morning for the profile. So please let me know whatever questions you have and you want to engage with any of our programs. But also, the Anchorage Chamber has been awarded an accreditation status of 5 stars by an independent third-party review board at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. This has been ongoing since 2015 and just renewed last year, and we are currently the only accredited Chamber of Commerce in the state of Alaska. We work closely with some of our partners, partner organizations who are represented here today, ADC, Visit Anchorage, Anchorage Downtown Partnership, and the Anchorage Chamber comprise a coalition alliance to activate Anchorage. So that's another way we all stay in touch with that information. Our board meets once a month on Friday around the lunch hour for 90 minutes. We do provide lunch, so there's like a bonus in there for you. And except for July, we do skip that month, so we can take a little summer break. We have up to 27 voting seats identified in the bylaws, and those are seats that directly represent business members specifically. They're not intended to be nonprofit or government members, although they're an important part of our system as well. But ex officios certainly provide a lot of context, color, and collaboration for what we're trying to achieve as we advance the work toward our mission. We are currently in the middle of a strategic planning process, so we've hopefully got some exciting news on the horizon as far as what's ahead and what's the long-term vision to advance our goals. But we certainly would be interested in answering any questions you have. On top of the board, on top of who would ever be the assigned liaison, we do offer several committees that work toward different specified objectives, and any of you would be welcome, especially at our municipal activity committee, which does meet monthly. So I don't know if that's any questions for me.
Anna?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought up Municipal Activity Committee.
thank
I wonder
you.
if you could talk a little bit more about that, because I also wanted to mention to members,
Yeah.
I'm not one of the liaisons, but I was asked to give an update, I think, on housing a couple years ago. And then I remember we brought the home initiative to that
Right.
committee just to present information. So it's also an avenue to share legislation, but maybe you could speak kind of what the scope of that committee
Yeah,
is.
that committee has co-chairs who are board members. And so they bring back the news and updates, but sort of whatever's latest and greatest, we definitely want to know about whatever's progressing or being introduced. Like that would be really important things for that committee to have an opportunity, as yours do, to discuss, review, explore, and make a recommendation to advance to the board to adopt an action. Thank you.
What's this at 5 minutes? Any last questions? Go ahead, Erin.
Yeah, just a note of congratulations
Thank you
to
so
you
much.
for being selected for the National U.S. Chamber Fellowship. That's really exciting.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All right. And thank you to George for being
Now,
our liaison
Jenna.
for some time.
Now. Right in the middle, the heart of it. Welcome.
Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you today. My name is Jenna Wright, and I am the president and CEO of the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation. We are a private nonprofit. We were actually founded in 1987 by the municipality of Anchorage, but we were spun off 2 years later in 1989 to be a private nonprofit organization, membership-based, and that's how we have been existing ever since. Our mission is to grow a prosperous, sustainable, and diverse economy. We're a fully nonpartisan organization. We're business-led, and really our focus is the long-term economic success of Anchorage. We exist as an organization to encourage growth and diversity in the Anchorage economy, promote a favorable business climate, and then improve the standard of living of all Anchorage residents. We are led by a 15-member board of directors that is comprised of our investor members across diverse industry sectors of Anchorage. And then we also have 3 ex officio seats specifically per our bylaws. And one is designated for the mayor of Anchorage or their designee. And then there are 2 ex officio seats for assembly members of the Anchorage Assembly. Internally, we've got a pretty small team of about 5 people, but we really, I think, punch above our weight. We have somebody, so we have myself as president and CEO, we have a director of marketing and development, we have someone focused on business retention and expansion, we have someone focused on the Choose Anchorage plan, which I'll touch on a little bit later, and then also a part-time admin assistant to keep things going behind the scenes. So we accomplish our work in a number of ways. One of the things that we are most well known for is our economic research. So we produce I'll back up, and I think I'll say we're the only organization that really focuses on Anchorage specific data. There's a lot of statewide resources out there, but we really focus on Anchorage. And so some examples of the reports that we produce each year are an annual cost of living report, an annual economic forecast specifically of the job market and key industries in Anchorage, quarterly job posting reports. We do a professionally developed business confidence index survey, consumer confidence index surveys. So everything that policymakers like yourself, as well as like private decision makers, need to make good business decisions and policy decisions. The second thing is business retention and expansion. So we run what I believe is the city's only business retention and expansion program, where we sit down confidentially with businesses to hear what's on their mind, what are things that are going well, and then what are really challenges for them. And then we help to advocate for solutions or connect them with solutions. And then, of course, we also aim to attract investment from outside of Anchorage as well. The third is business advocacy and thought leadership. So from those retention meetings, as well as from direction of our board of directors, that helps to guide our advocacy efforts. Most recently, it's things that are pain points for all businesses, right? It's housing, childcare. We advocated at the state level for K through 12 education, and all kinds of course, the capital investment project of Project Anchorage we worked on last year, and things along those lines. The fourth is community livability projects. And we focus on this as an organization because businesses want places that are thriving or like crawling with talent, and then talent wants to be in a place where it's a safe, fun, vibrant city. So this is very important to our business retention and expansion efforts. And you may be familiar with the Live, Work, Play initiative that AEDC launched all the way back in 2010. Today, most of our work is focused on the Choose Anchorage initiative, which is really a more comprehensive revitalization framework that kind of incorporated a lot of what we learned from Live, Work, Play. And it has 4 major pillars, which are business vitality, talent, quality of place, and infrastructure. And then lastly, what kind of a nonprofit would we be if we didn't throw events? We throw 2 biannual luncheons where we sell out the Denina, and we're really proud to say it's the largest sit-down business event in all of Alaska. So we do that twice a year, and we focus on providing economic reporting to the community. We get to hear from the mayor on what her and her administration are up to, and then we also bring up a keynote speaker that typically tries to incentivize the city to invest in livability efforts or some sort of economic reporting that is relevant to all the business community that's in the room. Our next event is August 6th, and we always have a table for all of you. So please mark your calendars. We hope to see you all there. All right, I hope that I stayed in my 5 minutes, and that gives you all kind of a high level picture of what AEDC does. And I hope that you all, as you do your work in the coming year, really rely on us as a resource and a partner in all of your economic development initiatives that you have going on. I didn't bring slides, but I do have packets of some examples of some of the work that we do and our signature economic forecast report. So I'll leave those at the table up front, and it also has my contact information in it. Thank you.
Questions?
Just wondering if you can give a brief overview, time commitment for the new members and dates and times of those commitments.
Yes, absolutely. So the board of directors meets 8 times a year, generally every month, except for January and the summer. So that results in 8 meetings. It is from 8:30 to 10 on the first Wednesday of the month. And that's the main commitment. As Kathleen said, you're welcome to join different ad hoc committees and things like that, but that's the minimum commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, the next organization isn't exactly a liaison organization, but so Jamie had suggested maybe at our next meeting, but since we're doing this now, I'm going to go ahead and do this. The Federation, you can come on forward, Ari. The chair has, or the vice chair has historically been the one to go to these meetings and make these reports, but for a number of reasons, I haven't had the availability. And so just an opportunity for the Federation to discuss their role and the opportunities. Ari.
Thank you, Chair. And apologies, mine is not as polished because I found out about this meeting an hour ago. And so I was kind of shoehorned in with Chris and said, can I please present because it impacts us greatly. This also is not a board position. It's probably the smallest time commitment I'll ask of you. And so I want to talk a little bit about what the FCC does and what kind of we're asking for. So the FCC was founded approximately 1976, though we started a little earlier. And we are a small nonprofit. There are only 2 staff, and we are almost exclusively funded by a grant from the Assembly, which is why for us, it's really impactful that we have an Assembly member who is able to sometimes be present so that we're showcasing the work that we're doing and being responsible to the funds that you guys graciously provide. As Chris said, there's a historical precedent. It's my understanding is that an Assembly member has attended board meetings for the majority of the time that the FCC has existed. Generally, the capacity is that the Assembly person comes and presents on what the work is that's going before the body. And that's around 5-10 minutes, much like a community council meeting. There may be questions. We've recently restructured our board meetings to be a little bit more attentive to our presenters. And so our meetings are the 3rd Wednesday of every month. We have a picnic in July that all of you are welcome to attend. But other than that, it's 11 months out of the year. And we meet on the 3rd Wednesday from 6 to 8. But the presentation portion is from 7 to 8. So you could come at 7 and generally, because we do nonprofit work in the first half. And while we welcome your attendance, if you're trying to just keep it real short, that's okay. The community councils present on what's going on in their neighborhood. So it's a great chance to hear. We do like quarterly rotations from councils. So you'll hear from a quarter or a third of all of the councils about what's going on. So it's a great way to keep a temp on what's happening in the city. And then we also have generally a member of the school board, a member from the mayor's office, a member from the Assembly, and then also the planning department has recently joined us and will be giving short presentations about what they're working on because of the close tie of land use and community councils. So it's a coalition for civic engagement. That is the role of the Federation to support that. We, like I said, are overseen by the Assembly and provide regular quarterly reports and annual reports on the work that we do. Yeah, that's kind of all I have. It's very quick, not a board seat, 15-20 minutes every 3rd Wednesday.
All right.
And if
so-
you want to rotate, like it doesn't have to be the same person, just saying.
Any questions? Oh, okay, thanks, Ari.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have a Visit Anchorage. Julie, come on.
All right, good afternoon, and thank you. This to me was defined as speed dating, so here we go. Visit Anchorage is charged with driving economic and social value for Anchorage residents, although all of our clients are outside of Anchorage, so it's a little bit different. So most of the work we do is directed at people who are not within our community, but we do it on behalf of the folks in our community. Visit Anchorage holds 2 contracts with the municipality of Anchorage. One is for destination marketing, and that is a 50-year contract this year. And the other one is management and oversight of our convention centers, which is a contract that is of shorter tenure, started in 2006, but it's been a very successful partnership. And the municipality should feel good about the funding model that built the Denina Center and also maintains both the Denina and the Egan Center to this day at no cost to property taxpayers. We're very proud of our record and work on behalf of the city in service of both of these contracts. The industry provides jobs, livelihoods, and improves the quality of life in Anchorage. So we attract new money into our community. We're also very proud that we're an industry that came together 50 years ago and said, here's a program we want, marketing, and here's how we'll pay for it, tax us. That self-funding model has proven successful, supporting our promotional efforts while also contributing general funds to the city. And to put some numbers to that, in 2024, $57 million was collected in lodging taxes and car rental taxes. And of that, 72% stayed with the municipality in support of general services, as well as civic services such as the convention centers. And then the remaining funds are reinvested in tourism promotion. You'd be coming on the board at a time that is important as we look to contract. Both of those contracts are up this year. So those contract renewals will be up for discussion in the coming months. And I'm biased, but in my mind, we are economic development at its best. People think of us as the fun industry, but it's actually serious business. We have a halo effect through destination marketing. So the work that we do leads to those outside our community to think of Anchorage in a better light. They think of it as a good place to live. They think of it as a good place to do business. They also think of it as a good place to come to school. So we have this halo effect among all of our industries. The other thing about our industry, we're super entrepreneurial. So we're representing really the smallest of small businesses in our community, which I'm very proud of. We are accredited, and the board and staff take our work and responsibilities seriously, which is why Visit Anchorage has an outstanding reputation nationally within our client groups, which are meeting planners, travel advisors, tour operators, and also among other destinations. We also have great support from our local businesses and members. We have 2 seats on our board for assembly members, and these are not ex officio. These are actually full voting board members of Visit Anchorage. So to give you a sense of our annual calendar, we have 4 quarterly meetings. Those are typically the first Thursday after the close of a quarter. So January, April, July, or excuse me, the third Thursday, July and September. We also have a 2-day retreat in the spring sometime. It varies greatly from February to maybe the end of March. And then we also have a budget meeting in September. Our meetings, to give you a sense, are 3 to 5 hours long. Generally, it's a Thursday afternoon, and we do feed you. So, and we got the best swag. But let's see, we have 27 total board members, a handful of advisors, and should you choose, several committees that you can also participate on. Your fellow board members are fantastic. They're serious about our work and our mission. They're also serious about having fun. And they understand the mission, they have respect for our funding, and they support the organization and passionately support the industry that they represent. On top of board and committee work, they have also asked staff to provide opportunities in the community as a board so that we're all out there volunteering together, which I think says something about our board members as well. And that's what I've prepared. Happy to take any questions.
I think that's good. Thank you.
Thanks.
So we will go ahead and take the conversations offline. Send to the clerk if you're interested in being liaisons for these organizations. Anna and I are working out committees and liaisons still. Committees will be done before liaisons, very likely. And the idea is, if at all possible, we want people who want to participate on those groups rather than be kind of cajoled into doing it. And so with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next part of our agenda. We're going to have to truncate the time a little bit to 10 minutes for, 15 minutes for overview of assembly committees and committee assignments, if we even use that much time. I have asked Anna to lead the conversation relating to the assembly committee. So Anna.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll keep this informal. As you all know, we have a number of committees. They are things that we can essentially control the structure of. There are a couple that do need to exist no matter what, one of which is the audit committee that has a specific function. For example, I know Mr. Bear is not here right now. He's been chair of it, as I understand it. So there's some that definitely need to exist. But other than that, I think we should feel the flexibility and empowerment to make these committees useful for us. So frequency of meetings, and again, it's not the chair and vice chair's decision how all these work other than these assignments. So it's really something that you take on a committee and decide what you would like to do with it, and making sure that it does fill whatever required functions. So for example, I've been co-chair of our budget and finance committee. Budget's one of our core functions. It's a committee of the whole. We meet every month, but beyond that, I think there's a lot of kind of leeway what that looks like. And then, of course, we've created the transportation committee, for example. So Mr. Boland's been leading that one. We've kind of shifted the committees over time, like community economic development, right? As you've said, Mr. Martinez, it's focused a lot on marijuana licensing and kind of issues that have been coming through, but there's a lot of opportunity to go broader. So just in general, I think there's as you look at these or as you've been attending, the goal is not necessarily that they always continue the way they have been. And then also, we can look at kind of the frequency of meetings. We've talked about, does it make sense to have monthly meetings for all of them? Does it make sense to have maybe fewer longer meetings for some of them, or when are they most busy when they're doing their core functions? So anyway, all that to say, I'm not coming in with, here's what I think all the assignments should be or anything like that. But would love to hear from folks, what is your interest, whether it's continuing on a committee, taking on a new assignment, or saying, hey, you know what, I want to step back and have others lead on that. And then I'll also just say before we go into discussion, everybody can be, other than things like AMATs that are specific, and I'll kind of turn to others to speak to that one in more detail. All of these you can attend as a person, whether or not you're a member, whether or not it's a committee of the whole. Even AMATs is publicly noticed, so you can go sit in and listen. And also, you don't have to be a member to attend. So you can be on all of them if you want, again, other than AMATs, which has set membership, or you can just choose to be on none of them and show up. So we would hope that you would participate as a member. I think the qualifications, the kind of expectations for membership are that you do show up most of the time. Obviously, there's not generally voting, but we do, I think, we need at least 3 members technically to conduct committee business. Is that right?
I think it depends on the committee. Committee needs a quorum if it's going to take any action.
Okay.
So a committee can still meet if people are just there. It would be less formal. It would still be recorded and published.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, committee actions would require a majority of the body of the committee to do anything. And then a majority vote is not a majority of those present. It's a majority of the quorum, or it's the quorum. So it's a majority.
Okay. Yeah, so committee membership it's certainly not like the legislature where it's a whole thing. But it is helpful if you have signed up to be on a committee to plan to come at least most of the time. So actually, I don't know what would be most useful if it's giving overviews of each committee, and I would turn in that case to the leadership of those committees. And I think it would be helpful again to hear kind of where folks would like to put their energy, whether it's potential leadership or being a member or just something you anticipate doing a lot of work in.
Go ahead, Cameron.
Yeah, I just have a few, just talking about the 2 committees I'm involved in, but also just some general thoughts. So we did do a consolidation of the committees or a rearrangement of the committees recently. And so the public safety and the health policy sort of mushed together into public health and safety. And then the homeless committee became the housing and homeless committee. And I think I had a recent conversation with a few members about the housing and homeless, and that housing never really sort of became part of that, right? It was, and I'm not sure if that was the intent or not, but I would just say that I know there's a lot of people who are very interested in housing, and I think that it could very much be a committee of both. And I think especially because of the amount of work that happens in homelessness and in housing and in public safety and in health, there's a lot of work that happens outside of the committee. It doesn't all have to happen there. So I would just say that I'm very interested in continuing with those two committees. I'm very open to the idea of, because we put so much in public health and safety, it's a new world of all of these departments trying to figure out how to make use of that time and space. I think it very much could be that the same for housing and homelessness, and being able to use that time for both of those. I'll just say a couple of other things. One is that that I really like the fact that we're moving towards a place where the committees are a place of work. They're a place where proposed or possible action that will come to the committee, that's the time and space that it's used there. And that the committees that I was involved in previously, especially during the Bronson administration, moved to a sort of updates. And it didn't feel as useful because it was just a time when you could have sent me those updates through email and that sort of thing. So it's at least my hope that the committees that I'm involved in will be very action oriented. There will be items for discussion that will lead to action by the assembly, and that's the sort of the right use of that time to workshop things, to discuss things in that manner. And then the only other thing that I would just say about committees that is this sort of philosophy that I brought to them is, if you want to chair a committee because you want to bring items forward, to be able to sort of use that committee as a way to bring them forward, right? So I'm going to be a chair because I'm really interested in that work, so I can use that time to bring the items I want to bring forward in that committee. That's your right as an assembly member to use it in that way. That's not the way that I've seen the committees be used. I've seen the committees be used as a space for the discussion around items from different members, from the administration, from the community, and it's a space to be able to discuss all of that. And so I just share that because I think there have been some in the past, someone feeling like I want to use the committee because the committee is the things that I want to be doing, right? And I'm not sure I said that very well, but I just wanted to say that in terms of the committees that I'm on, I really feel like that it's a space where lots of different things can come, and being chair doesn't necessarily mean that you can bring anything you want forward. It means that you are sort of a vessel for others. So that's all I want to share. Thanks. And that I'd like to remain as involved in those two committees, chair.
Other members? Anyone? So I don't think we need to dive too far into this now. Again, members have been asked to send forward communications to the clerk about their positions that they would like to serve on. We have received a few and they're in the hopper. If we don't receive information from members on their interests, then assignments will be forthcoming. And it's all choose your own adventure still. If we say you're on, we can't compel you to be there. I guess we could find a way to send the troopers, but that's just not what we do. So, Anna?
Yeah, and then I see Dan has his hand up too. I think the other thing to maybe surface, and I actually, because I have not been here that long, so the kind of conversation about co-chairs, vice chair, you can have a third on the committee, right? Because we have a limit of 3. So I would be curious kind of to hear how that's been done in the past, or because again, I think it's something that the assignments for leadership would be made, but it doesn't necessarily, there's different ways to do it. So I don't know how it's been done. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. But just curious from the folks.
Well, and I'll just say that I think the co-chair, when I've done it, it's you're back and forth. One person chairs one day, another person chairs another day. It's a much more shared, and which can be great and can be hard because you kind of have to talk about lots more, and you have to be, I think, more in unison, or at least communicating more. Where a chair, vice chair is where the chair is still in charge of the committee, and the vice is sort of a backup and a co-collaborator and connector and working. But it's still very clear in terms of who is sort of in charge of that committee. And I've had both of them, and they've both worked great. So I think it's a matter of the relationship you want to have with the chair and sort of how you want the committee to be run.
Daniel?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess I'll voice that I would love to continue on as chair of the Transportation Committee and as one of the AMATS Policy Committee members. When we started the Transportation Committee, part of the impetus of doing that was myself and member Zolotel. We were the 2 AMATS Policy Committee members, and we wanted to loop in our colleagues on what was being discussed, because AMATS can kind of feel like a black hole, and those are the members who are voting on millions of dollars of federal and state funding. And so we really wanted to capture the input of all of our colleagues from the various districts and not just kind of, go rogue and do our own thing. But one of the nice things about the Transportation Committee, if anybody would love to be a vice chair, you are more than welcome, is that we meet quarterly. And something I would like to see, and I'm just going to throw this out there, because I feel like we all have limited capacity. Not only do we have committee meetings and work sessions and our regular meetings, but we're often being asked to meet with constituents or to have meetings with various municipal employees, department heads, et cetera. I think it could be great if some of these committees were not so report heavy and more action oriented, but also could meet less frequently on a quarterly or every other month basis. And that's my thoughts. And then we have a couple other ones that meet less often, sort of on an ad hoc or as needed basis when those projects like ethics and elections, I think is one that meets less frequently, maybe the audit committee. So just thinking about how we might have more participation from more colleagues if we didn't have to meet as frequently.
Others? Erin?
So I would like to offer myself as tribute for AMATS with Mr. Volland. That's something I'm particularly interested in. And I think I'd like to just put before the group that I am very interested in land use. I'm really interested in housing policy. And it seems like those conversations, as Cameron mentioned a moment ago, are happening in a couple of different spaces. I know there's been land use conversations in economic development and community and economic development. There's the Housing and Homelessness Committee that has been more homelessness focused, but there's housing sort of wrapped in there too. So I'm not sure what location would be the most helpful, but that is something I'm particularly interested in. Is how are we being really strategic about moving forward policy that gets more housing built? So in whatever context that needs to happen, I think those are my two primary interests. Is this an appropriate time to chat about like the things that we're and I'm also interested in infrastructure. So the Vowel Soup Committee, whatever the Vowel Soup is also a place that I'm interested, especially with the waste energy project that's ahead of us. I think there's some really, really big things that are happening in the infrastructure space. So those are my druthers.
Thanks. And I do think the housing policy work for the longest part of our history has occurred in the CEDC, in the Title 21 committee that it was its predecessor, and in that space on the kind of long-term policy level. And we did attempt, as the title says, to put housing and homelessness together, but ultimately housing in response to homelessness is kind of one set of concerns. It doesn't deal much with the housing policy issues. It deals with the more pragmatic issues of finding and securing housing for individuals. And so
housing and homelessness primarily around housing related to
homelessness and the response and and so I think that the answer is it's still CEDC is the natural. It happens at the permitting center where all the experts are out there. And so anyhow, we'll note that. Yarrow.
Yeah, I just want to echo, I think if housing is one of our top priorities, which I think it is for a lot of members, that we kind of maybe treat it like that in our committee structure. So just kind of echoing.
Yeah, and I will say that the theme that we've been working on, that I will continue to work on until I'm done, is twofold. One is as few meetings as possible to achieve the work we need to get done, right? And so we can't afford the time to create a new committee for every priority, because you will soon find there's simply not enough time in the day to have all of those meetings. And so some consolidation is key. And to the point I think you're making, it is valid that if it is a priority, as we have said it is, it needs to have that much room in a place. And so the natural is, my drive has been to find the places where we regularly meet and identify within those places, the time needed to do that. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the tension and the decision-making process we've had, because we could have 12 different priority committee groups, and then you could be all over town. And so that's the work that we've been doing, and we're gonna hold that line and meet that goal. So, Keith.
Yeah, I just wanted to state that I think my interests kind of aligned where Randy was at, and so happy to fill the shoes in the committees he was on with public health and safety and housing and homelessness. Not to follow Cameron around all week.
That'll be good for everybody. Okay, just those two?
Yeah.
Okay. So, which is not to minimize, those are big issues. Yeah. Others, and you don't need to say it right now, but you can. Go ahead, Scott.
I text Anna just to
Yeah.
take time off your plate, but I'm happy to stay on CEDC, whatever it is, with George. Budget and finance, it's a time commitment in the beginning and in the end, so I'm happy to step into that and try to help Anna out. I just don't want to commit to 100 hours a month of meetings. And then legislative, that's always been an interest of mine, so.
Okay. George.
Just a note, no committee contains every idea, right? And so you could be at any committee and there could be a connection to like housing, for example, in public health and safety, right? It could be related to something that's germane to that question. So we don't have to put all the eggs in the basket. I would just introduce CEDC quickly for folks and give a little sense of what I hope to continue to participate with. The mission of the Community and Economic Development Committee is to evaluate and make recommendations to refine municipal code and processes to encourage efficient government, responsible development, and healthy economic growth. Doesn't sound as interesting as other committees, and that's a fine thing to me, primarily because the committee, from my vantage point, has been rubber meets the road, very much practical discussions, practical implications. This committee originally started off as basically the Title 21 committee, right? So very practical, very much in the weeds of things. And then it also picked up it was the first place for the marijuana licensing to come through the municipality, which has now been really robustly brought into our municipal framework. And so we don't deal with the same amount of work on marijuana licenses as originally had been in this committee's jurisdiction. Having said that, though, the name of the committee is more expansive than the Title 21 committee, where it started. And so I would just say, Chair, I believe that leadership is about service. And although I may have lots of ideas that I bring through this committee, I recognize this is not my committee. This is a committee of the Assembly, and I am prepared to step aside for the opportunity for others who are interested in doing this work, although I am fully prepared to continue to serve and helping to move this committee from its original origins into a space that it fully recognizes community and economic development. I'll continue, Chair, and describe that I have a strategic agenda. I have tried to establish an increased alignment of our community partners. So every organization and liaison group that presented today has now found a reporting home in CEDC, which wasn't something that was in place when we came on board. And if you heard all of those folks, it's because they all have some degree of a connection to community and economic development, broadly defined. So I've tried to do that work, and I've also tried to set agendas that have been, Visit Anchorage used the word, and Jack Bonner's presentation the other day, cool. And that was one of the first presenters to use the word cool, and I encourage other people to come with cool ideas to the committee, because this is the committee where we vetted, for example, the music census that the assemblies supported as well. And so that's the creative economy work that we have been bringing in. So I open this up for the opportunity to invite members into this discussion of what this committee could be. It meets early in the morning, so it's the earliest committee meeting. Let me just be clear about that. It is a monthly first Thursday of the month prior to our assembly meeting, which gives people the opportunity to have us vet stuff from the permitting department often. That's going to come before the assembly. It's a 9 a.m. meeting, and we go from 9 to 10:30 in the morning. I am inclined to just to share, I will listen, and we've discussed at the committee and with individual members, the timing. Generally speaking, the timing of that committee has been best for staff at the permitting department who prefer to meet early and then have the rest of their day to go actually do the work and not necessarily jank their day up. So we meet at the permitting because a lot of the staff's work is germane to that space. Chair, that's what my presentation is. And if there are any questions about the committee, I'm more than welcome to chat with folks offline. Thank you.
Darrell?
I sent a email in advance of the meeting, but I just wanted to reiterate, I think my main areas of interest are the public health and safety, budget, and homelessness. Thanks.
Sounds good. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Jared.
And I just sent an email a little bit ago, but I do know that that Mark Littlefield had a role with AMAS, and I do think that is a valuable role to have a Chugiag Eagle River representative on there as well. Thanks.
I'll just say there's also room for an alternate member on AMAPS.
We'll work that out.
Yeah, two specific things. One, would be looking for a co-chair of budget. We can also have three. And also budget is something I'm happy to meet with everybody about if you just want an overview. And of course, we'll stay out of anything that we'd be voting on immediately, but before that budget is before us, that's an option, or you can meet with OMB. So looking for leadership on that committee. And then I intend to step back from legislative committee. So we're coming to the end of session. I've already spoken with my vice chair. He's still interested, but not necessarily being chair. So we would be looking for a new chair of legislative committee. And that one is working closely with the mayor's office. And we have a great staff support now. And I'll talk to you guys afterwards too with my update. But so that's an opportunity where you do have a lot of support as we move into creating the legislative program and going beyond. So
Super quickly on the legislative committee. Thanks, Dan, for all our hard work there. I am certainly interested in staying on as vice chair. If there's a new member who wants to step into that and maybe doesn't want to go right into the chair role, I'd be open to the idea of doing a co-chair or some other arrangement. So open-minded there, other than to say that I do want to continue to stay involved in that committee leadership.
Oh yeah, we're not moving you out. George.
Just an additional for the new members, Littlefield was a member of CEDC as well, so he wasn't a leadership, but he was a member of it. Mr. Salt was also a member of CEDC as well, because the economic development stuff was in his lane, in his wheelhouse. So just make sure that folks who are tracking where their predecessors were, they were also coming to those meetings. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna move us on because we're gonna run out of time, and I'm gonna postpone the next item. Jamie's not here. We have some notes from folks on the resolutions and their interest levels, but as you saw at the last meeting, we had 11. And thankfully it went pretty quickly, but I put some screws on the people who were speaking, and so it kept their time short, not as welcoming as we have been in the past. And obviously every member has a right to bring forward those things, but 11 was sure a lot for one meeting. It might be the most that I've had at a meeting, or very close to most in 8 years. And so thankfully, again, it didn't turn into a train wreck, but it's an area of consideration that we're really looking at for how to streamline. But we did get the documents from folks, and we have a kind of an analysis of that, and we'll have some conversations about that in the future.
Do you mind me saying something real quick? If we have about 6 of these, so the members who haven't sent them, can you please get these to us?
It's a little table of your interest on resolutions, on the standing ones that we have. George?
Just on that note.
Yep.
These often are resolutions that everyone's name is associated with.
Right.
So why is it not that way now? Why is this a new process?
No, we've always provided an opportunity for members to have their name on or off of resolutions. And these pop-up ones in particular always come from a sponsor and there hasn't been an opportunity. And so what the clerk has done is put a table together of all of these resolutions and ask people, is this where you want to be a primary sponsor? Do you want to be named or not? And it's just saving people difficult conversations at the last minute if they don't want to be on something, and it will help streamline. And it's really gauging the interest in certain resolutions that have just continued to happen year in and year out. Is there anybody who's even sponsoring this? Why are we doing this? It's kind of the function of that form. It's a gauge. So it's not a black and white thing. It's just so we can understand. In particular, if there are 5 or 10 of the annual ones that no one's interested in, we're gonna take them off.
I understand. Thank you. I appreciate that. I would just suggest that it may be difficult to gauge what you're trying to gauge by gauging email responsiveness.
And that's why the clerk has half the members have submitted that document. Hopefully half the other members will. If they don't, we will do the best we can with what we have. So Cameron.
Very briefly, we talked about this before, but I'd really like to consider, I don't know how the process we use, like the reading of the entire resolution and these kinds of things, how we might consider changing that so that it creates space for as many recognition resolutions as we want. I mean, the other night, we didn't read several of them. They still were passed and they still went through. So I'd like to explore that as well. And so
Right.
that's another conversation.
So that is this conversation. The forms are the first part of that conversation. And maybe if Jamie were here today, we would do this right now, but we're out of time and I would rather get through pending business than that conversation today. But it is an item that is not resolved and we'll be coming back. And if you have a chance, that checklist is pretty easy to go through. And I didn't put lots of details in the far right columns, but I did put the ones that I'm interested in being the sponsor on, the ones that I'm okay with being listed. And I didn't list the ones that I think should be removed, but I hope what will happen is a lack of ownership will demonstrate those that can be removed because somebody at some point really valued it and no one does as much anymore. So that's my hope, that there might be 5 or 10 of those of the whatever 50 of them that can just kind of move out of the way. Go ahead, George.
Not to belabor one additional point. Often, these resolutions have history with community members who assembly members may not be connected with, right? And so our, again, gauging is not necessarily a representative of the interest in the community.
So my rebuttal to that is just that I believe, and I am working to eliminate any random actions of inertia that enter items onto our agenda. And so an item to be on our agenda must, in my opinion, have a sponsor of the mayor or an assembly member, not just because it's always been done. And so I am working to eliminate these de facto actions where our agenda gets moved into that space where there are people, because to Cameron's point, there are probably 1,000 organizations that would all love to have 3 minutes of time in front of us. And so
Well, those are different questions. Respectfully, I think an example would be a worker cooperative resolution was passed.
but that was under items for action.
The point is, it was passed, and I did the presentation offline, outside of the body with the person, right? So it was just done offline, right? So how we organize the flow of information is important. But the point I would raise is, new members don't often know a lot of what they don't know until they figure it out when they're on this body, right? And so on that front, I don't know how many members come on board with any understanding of all of the holidays, let alone the relationship of community members' interest in supporting that. So I just wanted to flag that
Right. and
there's a little gray room in that. area.
So we are not making an executive decision on this. We are generating this table and we will have a conversation. These are the results that we saw. And then we will go through the ones that have historically been there. And if there's nobody who's adopting them, and after a conversation, still nobody who's adopting them, then we will know. And so this will all be done right here. This is the best committee. This is where things happen. So now we're going to get to the next part of the agenda though, which is members' discussion of their pending business and updates And so, George, I'll start.
So a couple of items that I will just flag for folks that I'm working on. I introduced a resolution at the last meeting that was postponed to the next meeting, the first meeting of June, which is an economic development framework. And we've started receiving some tremendous responsiveness to that because it was presented at the committee meeting. And so I just thank our community members who have been our economic development community partners for that work. And so you should hear more about that. And I think the chair is going to, at the request of Member Perez Verdia, have a work session on that item as well. I also introduced an item that has been where we put the public hearing out into June, essentially a food security ordinance, and working on some actions around food security and land use. And then lastly, I'll just flag that I am working on helping young people have more access to safe public transportation. I have flagged for members on the public record that I have a child who rides the bus, and their experience of some unfortunate interactions with accessibility is not alone, and but has been raised to the level that I'm working with a People Mover director, Bart, I forget his last name off the top of my head, but on helping to remedy and give more opportunity for access to young people in public transportation in Anchorage. So those are a couple of projects that I will share today that I'm working on. The food security is looking for some co-sponsorship if anybody's interested in digging deeper into that whole world of food security and resilience. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. It's Bart Rudolph, Transit Director. Rudolph.
Bart Rudolph, thank you. Wonderful champion of public transportation and very responsive.
Thank you. Daniel?
So as you all will know, former member Zolotel and I introduced an ordinance that would increase the business personal property tax exemption from $20,000 to $250,000. Since Meg's departure, I have conscripted two intrepid new members, Yarrow and Keith, to help me on that project. And we've been talking with the administration quite a bit, have had some really helpful conversations via Zoom meetings and email, getting a lot of good information from property tax assessor and Treasury Department and other folks. And we're going to have a work session on that tomorrow, where you hear a very riveting presentation from yours truly. And yeah, that's what we're working on. I'm pretty excited these guys are teaming up with me. Thanks.
Right. Yarrow.
I don't have anything to report, thanks.
Yet. Scott?
Yes, changing some setback requirements for zoning. Met with planning and zoning. Yeah. They're everywhere from 5 feet to 50 feet. And I think that makes things a little difficult for builders and developers, depending on slopes, depending on area, depending on front, side. Anyway, also Anna's not gonna like this one, but repealing the mandatory showing of ID for everyone. I'm getting a lot of folks who own bars and restaurants and even private clubs like VFW or Elks or Lions that, you know, if you're 70 years old and you were just in there yesterday, having to show your ID or in there earlier the same day, especially when you can show something that's not a state specific ID, whether it's military or whether it's a passport card or passport. So anyway, yeah, a couple of those things. So.
I would note for the record that when you mentioned setbacks, there was almost a chant across the room of "ooh," so that wouldn't have been caught by the microphone, so I had to say that. So, okay, thank you, Mr. or Keith.
Nothing here, thank you.
All right, nothing yet. All right, Aaron.
Nothing yet, but it's coming.
All right, Zach.
Nothing to report.
Anna.
Yeah, I'll mention a few things. One, the civic education and outreach stuff, it's legislative services project, but I've been helping just brainstorm with that and really excited about it. And I would invite other members to think about if you want to do stuff in your district, especially this summer, whether it's related to getting people involved in the assembly, or if you want to get folks' thoughts on various topics, just something to think about. And you can talk to our staff because they are really jazzed about a lot of cool ideas. So definitely talk to those three if you have ideas there. The two items that were in the budget, I gave this update earlier to Budget Advisory Commission as well. Fiscal future and unification, the 50th anniversary. No specific updates there, but we've been speaking with Mayor's office. I've been working with our staff, OMB. So expect more for that soon. And that one is definitely not an Anna project. That is an entire municipality project, both of those really. And so that's another one to think about. OMA makes it a little more complicated, but we want to make sure everybody can participate in that. And one idea for the unification is, really unification is the combination of all these different communities across the municipality. So Girdwood, Basher used to be its own thing. Spenard was its own thing, right? And then all these neighborhoods that have their own distinct history. So something just to put on your guys' radar is to think about within your district, all these different communities, however you want to define that, how has that changed over time? How have they changed over time? Or are there, ways like the history of Spenard is an interesting one, just as an example. So that's something to think about kind of is to bring it local in addition to this kind of broad umbrella of municipality. And again, that's something that, that I've been speaking with others about, and I think there'll be more kind of fun stuff soon. In terms of projects, I guess, Cameron, were you going to mention the task force stuff, or do you want me to? Okay, so Cameron can talk about that one. And then the site access project that Mr. Volan and I have been working on with the mayor's office and others is going to be introduced on the agenda for the 20th. I believe we have a work session scheduled, or we will. So that's zoning code changes and real big problems in our current code. So look for that soon. And otherwise, as I've said before, I'm just trying to reconfigure and step back from some things for various reasons, mostly to stay sane. So I'm not working on a lot of projects besides those that I'm carrying forward that already started, but just to say I'll be back, I'm sure. So thank you.
Jared.
Yeah, nothing yet, but like winter, it's coming.
It's coming. And Cameron?
Yeah, just a few things. Thanks for those who attended the ACE meeting the other day, and knowing that a strategic plan process is coming forward soon with that. So that'll be exciting to be a part of. Yesterday was the first meeting of the naming commission, which was really exciting. And so those seats are not completely filled yet, but they have begun meeting and are beginning to lay the foundation and build a plan for moving forward. So very excited about that. That's a 4 or 5 year project that's actually coming to fruition. Anna mentioned this, but you'll see an AIM coming related to the Public Safety Commission Task Force and the naming of the conveners. Is that what we want to call them? So Felix and then Emily Clock are going to be. So the way that it's set up is that the chair of the Public Health and Safety Committee sort of is tasked with assigning who's going to lead that. And so expect that to be coming soon, and expect that process to be coming there. And our RP process has gone out. And so that we can begin to identify who can serve as that facilitator and begin to move that process forward. Expect a work session coming on childcare regulation changes that will be coordinated with the ACE group, but also we're looking at putting forward a work session to discuss those before the full body has an opportunity to vote on them. So really looking forward to hearing about that. And then just being aware that the mayor's office has put out a pretty comprehensive strategic priorities document for both public safety and for homelessness. We had a really comprehensive presentation in the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting with an incredible amount of work that's going to happen over the next year, from fire to police to parks to health department, really strategic, impactful work that's going to require policy from us, that's going to require code changes probably from us, it's going to require probably some allocation of funding. So really tracking that within the committee structure and making sure that we're standing behind a lot of that work and making sure that it's successful over the next year. So that's a big focus for me. Thanks.
Right. I'll just ask, is there anyone in the audience or on the phone who wishes to be heard, member of the public? Okay, so I'll go ahead and give my report then, since I didn't hear anyone. I have a handful of items that was introduced and it's set out for a long time from now as a conversation for us to have about ranked choice voting later in the summer. Many of you will remember we passed an ordinance dedicating a portion of Track J as a park. And we're going to have an ordinance that just slightly shifts the boundaries with a plat map that will be the final boundaries. And that puts some controls around the emergency use of an access road that would be a backup for the port. And so that should be coming forward pretty soon. We also have introduced, I think for hearing in August, an ordinance on the public records, and the administration has a draft that was pulled together by myself and Ms. Zalatel that they're working on. Really, the ball is in their court to tell us what works or doesn't of what we have put together. That project will come back before us, and it will hopefully simplify, streamline, and unify our records request process so the public has an easier opportunity to get the records that are theirs. I have been looking, and it's not a well-developed project at this time, for ways to tighten up the code enforcement process so that when you have, all of a sudden a junkyard of cars operating in a residential neighborhood, or an off the books RV repair lot where 7 RVs are taking over a neighborhood, that there are better tools for the folks in code enforcement to help manage. Then there's been an ongoing discussion. I don't have drafted language yet about the possibility of putting in a cap to the number of marijuana licenses in the municipality. So it's a conversation that's been brought to us by the industry and by some neighbors who feel like there are enough in their neighborhoods. Also an ordinance that would require our contractors provide audits if they are of a certain level of finance from the municipality. Currently, we require grantees to provide audits, but not contractors. And when we're talking billions of dollars of contracts, it might be in our best interest to have some form of insight into the way that they implement those contracts. I have a simple one. There's one intersection in town that's been a real problem. That's at the corner of Ingram and 5th or 6th, where trucks are illegally driving with their Jake brake, slowing down, which is blasting the neighbors, if you know what a Jake brake is. And it's against the rules to do that, but the code, it's a ticket for $75, and it's happening 20 times a day outside of a certain set of properties. And so, and then finally, we'll be looking at a resolution, if I can't get the answer back from our friends in the traffic department, policies around the use of footage from the traffic cameras that are now in nearly every major intersection in this town. So those are the things I'm working on. If there's nothing else, then George.
I would ask for the chair for the next rules meeting to add this to your workload. I'm interested in understanding what your leadership team's strategic investment plan for the branch is going to be this year. Where are we going to be investing in the branch, and how do we support the assembly members' work? I think that's a good conversation for the next rules.
So, and I can offer just one thing. We've made an offer for a third attorney, and the hiring is held up in some federal procedures right now because a federal attorney has to get a ethics sign off by a certain division of their department, and that division of their department is currently not operating. And so we will know hopefully soon whether this person is cleared to come work for us. She's a great attorney, and formerly lived in Alaska, doesn't live here now. So other than that, I think that we don't necessarily have a growth program. I can say again, while we just have 1 minute left, that I have sent forward to the administration, to the finance team, a request to look really closely at all of our positions' pay. And that's the staff, because we have a number of positions, not all of them that are very much associated with the administration's parallel positions, special assistant to the mayor kind of a thing, the clerk and a special assistant. Our pay is not comparable on very similarly situated jobs. It's also not comparable on jobs that aren't very similar, which don't play very well in the conversation about, hey, we need to raise these up. But we're having a conversation, which is like a 3-year approach to how we ensure that our staff who are doing parallel work to their staff have an equal opportunity to be compensated fairly. And so those are the 2 areas right now. I think Jamie would probably love it if I would bring forward that spreadsheet here. I'm not sure I'm prepared to do that at the next meeting, but we'll talk about it and we will be prepared to talk. I think though, I want to put that back on the members and put on your thinking caps, like what are the ways that you would think we should be promoting growth among our branch so that we can, it's not just an us thing.
Just for the record, I use strategic investment, which is not the same as growth.
Right.
Maybe a little different there. I appreciate the opening of the conversation. Thank you.
Chair, just because I want to build it really quick, I think partly what I'm hearing, and at least maybe this is what I want to hear, is that the way the process has been is that our people who work for us have said, let us know what projects you're working on, right? And what I've struggled with is that's not how I want support. That's not how I need support. So what I'm wondering is if the job of legislative services is to support this body, have they heard how we need to be supported? And then that's what I'm wondering is that maybe there's a new conversation about, because there's a process in which that we've done this in the past, and it's worth a review to be able to say, do we as a body actually need a different type of support or a different type of work rather than research this item, run this task force, that sort of thing. And so that's the conversation that I'd like to have as well. We can have it later.
I think that's a fine conversation, and I just want everybody to be really cognizant of the various departments within the branch. You know, we have the clerk who has certain duties, and those are spelled out in code in the charter, and we protect those because they're essential to the operation. They're the charter office, the ombudsman also charter office. And then all the rest of it is choose your own adventure. And a given Tuesday, we could make it different. And so it's a conversation about how we want to see that work. And so we can also add direction to the clerk or the ombudsman, but those are, yeah. Right. So, well, I guess the reason I raise that is because it's easy for us to think, hey, you should do this for us, but it might very well be that those are duties that are here. And so that's my point, I guess, is just be thinking broadly about all of those offices because they will all have different functions. So, and in management of this whole thing, that is one of the areas that is constantly a process of like tacking like an airplane, you know, you fly this way and then you pull back to your line because everyone wants to be helpful, right? And then this group will start doing that group's work and it becomes kind of an interesting navigation, but thank you all. That's the gist of this meeting. If there's anything else, then we'll go ahead and be adjourned and see you back here tomorrow for some work sessions.